Jack Donovan, good morning.
Good morning.
Excellent to see you again. How are things in Oregon?
Oh, everything's doing great. I actually just bought some land a few weeks ago, well, a few months ago now, and we've been building all kinds of things on the land, and that's kind of what I'm really excited about right now.
Oh, excellent. You'll tell us. I believe today you had an eclipse?
Yeah. It's just that I wasn't in the full zone, so I didn't see very much at all. It was kind of a non-event for me. And, the thing about mass events is that it's just a big traffic jam. It's like celebrating Halloween when everybody celebrates Halloween. I kind of want to not do it, I want to have my own important moments.
Good. Well, celestial events can be fun if you catch them, but in the wild, not in the city.
Yeah.
Look, we're very happy that your new book, at least in France, is coming out, translated in French, The Way of Eagle. Not the Way of Man, the Sky Without Eagles.
Way of the Eagle. I'm going to write that next.
Exactly, The Way of the Eagle. And so in French it will be Un ciel sans aigle.
Nice.
So we're looking. I'm looking forward to. Of course, I've read the English version. I'm looking forward to read the French one. So can you tell us a little bit about that book?
Well, that book actually is a collection of kind of my best essays from a certain period. I forget when the period actually ends. I would say probably about 2015, maybe 2014. So that's it's a collection of kind of my best work that I put out there, and then there are a few new essays that aren't online anywhere. There's an essay about Crom, I think.
Yes.
You and I both like that kind of stuff, and a little bit of Conan stuff, and then there's kind of an essay on brotherhood, like what my version of the perfect society would be, which wasn't included in anything online. So that was kind of a little bit different. There's an essay called The Manly Barbarian that I liked a lot. It kind of informed a lot of my work. I think it's based on Thorstein Veblen and his the philosophy of the leisure class.
Leisure class, yes.
Yeah. So I mean, there's a lot of interesting essays that I'm proud of from my past. So I mean, obviously, it's nothing that I've written super recently, but it's some of my best work.
I think they're still relevant, and judging from the success that you have in France and internationally, of course, with The Way of Man, these essays build up on it and explain a little bit how once you explain what is the way of the gang, the way of honor, strength, all these four virtues that you explain in The Way of Man, these essays build on that and actually go into many directions. Which one gave the title to the book, which I think was very interesting?
Oh, well, it was a speech I gave at a time many years ago, it was just an idea that there's nothing to look up to in our societies. I mean, people, greatness is kind of being torn down, and we don't, elevate like great men, in the way that we used to, and with great statues. And this is the man who did something amazing. It's a lot more about a victim culture, and I think that I'd rather have. I'd rather be led by men who are great, and despite all their flaws, because they always have flaws. Everybody has flaws, right? But I'd rather be around great men who are flawed than this kind of culture of just nitpicking away at everyone and trying to find, gossiping about everyone and so forth. Just about yearning for greatness, I think.
So you're not a special snowflake?
I probably am a special snowflake in some way, but I don't have hurt feelings about everything.
It seems that when you say that there's no more eagles in the sky, it's an interesting metaphor for not only the lack of leadership, but the lack of potential for each one of us to ever become an eagle, because there's no one teaching us greatness. There's no more culture of looking up to great people and emulate them.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, it's like I said, everything is more looking down.
How did you
that's
come to
something I've
that?
been talking about a lot lately, not necessarily in this book, but kind of where I've been going recently. I've been kind of reinvestigating a lot of Nietzsche, and everything is so nakedly the kind of master-slave morality turned upside down. The whole transvaluation of values, and it's like it's like he foresaw where we are right now in terms of the worship of weakness and of slave values and these people turning everything upside down. Like if you're strong, you're a bad person. If you're if you're powerful, you're a bad person. If you're rich, you're a bad person. If you say no to anyone ever, you're a bad person. If you make your own values, you're a bad person. Everybody has to be the same and equal and accepted in every way, no matter what they do or how inadequate they are. And I think that does fold back into this idea of wanting there to be eagles in the sky.
How did we come to that? Because our Western society, you live in the US, we obviously had wars in Europe, but US was massively leading, was winning, even won the Cold War. How did we come to that? How did we fall from so high, from the sky?
I think it's just been a slow creep for a long time. Like I said, Nietzsche was writing about the same thing, 150 years ago or whatever. And he saw it coming. It was a slow. I think the Industrial Revolution had a lot to do with it, and the kind of democratization of work, and everybody can do everything really, except for some STEM field things, and I think that it's just been a long, slow decline of letting people's grievances become more important than their strengths.
Yeah, it's something that we have seen recently. I think in the US, maybe you would like to comment. The campus life seems to not to be about achievement anymore, but some sort of weird, as you said, victim mentality, and complain about everything possible, everything imaginable.
Yeah, and I guess that maybe that started I don't know if it was always like that, or maybe it started in full force in the 60s or whatever, because, you had all those campus, the whole purpose of going to school was to rebel all of a sudden instead of to learn something, and to organize and so forth. And it's obviously young people they don't think they're easily manipulated, but they are, because they don't have a lot of life experience to be like, actually, that doesn't work. So that they're easy to manipulate and move around. And so if you get somebody charismatic, you can kind of, program them. And what's strange is that they think that they're going to school now to learn critical thinking skills, but they actually repeat their exact arguments of the professors. They're actually being indoctrinated as if they were going to church.
Yes.
And Jim Goad had Jim Goad and I have both been calling social justice warriors, church ladies. Because they're easily offended. If anyone says anything that's it's bad, it's like you said, a bad word. It's like they can't hear words they don't like. And that's kind of ridiculous. I'm not afraid of words, and that's the really scary thing about our society now is that people are equating words with violence to the point where anyone who says anything they don't like is somehow hurting them. Which I think is bizarre. But people have been taught that that's a reasonable thing to say, and it's really disturbing.
Now, the common people like you and me, people who work for a living, how do they see this? Because obviously, most women will still like strong and powerful men. Natural hierarchy does exist, and within businesses, well, it's not really a democracy unless there are some new roles such as diversity managers and things like that start to emerge. But companies who are politically correct don't focus on business and therefore die. So
yeah.
How do common people see all these things?
Well, I think a lot of people obviously just shake their heads and just have to. You still have to make a living, so they just kind of accept as much of it as they have to. People know the right words to say, and what's sad is that because people are so afraid of words, and so afraid of being put in a box, of being called like a racist or a sexist, or becoming unemployable, really, for that reason. You have people that just lie. Like it's like Patrick Bateman from American Psycho. They talk about all the causes that you're supposed to care about, but they don't care about any of them. They're just people just lie to themselves because you have to get through. Everyday life. I think that most people realize on some level that something's wrong, but I think that in reality they don't want to shoot themselves in the foot. You have to, in many ways, I think that they convince themselves of whatever people say they're supposed to say. It's easier to believe that the lie is true. It's more comforting than because then then you get in this thing where the world is upside down, is kind of, which is kind of the topic I've been developing, and that the world is upside down. So what do? I mean, then you're just angry about it all the time, and so it's easier to just accept it and say, you know what, this crazy shit that they've been telling me, it must have some merit. It's like talking about college life. I signed up to take a German class just because I wanted to learn. Felt like I needed a little structure. And there were like 8 genders that I had to choose from, and I was like, this is real. And this is like a redneck community college in the middle of nowhere, not like not like Portland State University or someplace where you would expect that to be. But like, I guess all schools are like that now, and it's really bizarre.
But if you check the right boxes, you can add extra points.
Oh yeah. Oh, it's definitely a point system. It's the victim scale.
You should also choose the race pretty well. You must say you're black. You get an extra point.
Yeah.
Now, on the leadership front, obviously the people who pretend in this sort of dystopian Soviet Union that the West has turned into, the leadership obviously seems to be also more like a dove without feathers than an eagle. But obviously, the eagle, there was one at least pretending to be an eagle, your current president, Donald Trump, who got elected by a majority of people and states that actually seems to vote in a not exactly way that they behave in day-to-day life, as you said, pretending and so on. How is this dissonance playing out with the leadership, with the current leadership, for whatever it is left of it?
Well, I mean, I try not to pay attention to the news because I think it's what I was mentioned earlier before we started the show, that I just assume that everyone is lying all the time, and I think that that's mostly right.
Yeah.
And so I don't really think that I actually know what's happening. Who knows? Trump could be back channeling with all the people on the left the entire time, and they could be playing a little game with us. I really don't know. I don't know how sincere he is. I do think that he, was elected or allowed to be elected to please a large swath of the population who is frustrated at being told what to say and being forced to lie and being forced to say things that they don't believe. And I think that he was elected really for that, not for any of his policies or anything. I think he was just seen as a force of anti-political correctness, and he's a troll. And I think that a lot of people they wanted someone to make fun of the far left and make fun of the media and expose kind of all their lies, and he does a good job of that because he calls everybody fake news, and it is all fake news. They make stuff. I've had enough things written about me to know that they really copy and paste old news and then add like one sentence and then make their new news. They're just lazy people doing crappy work. So I mean that's the media. So I mean and that happens to me all the time. So I can only imagine like someone at Trump's level. You must read stuff and be like, fuck these guys. So
now, interestingly, however, is that you are successful with what you write and your blog as well. Other people like Milo Yiannopoulos is #1 on Amazon with this book that is coming out.
Yeah, that's pretty amazing. Yeah.
So there seem to be the revolt in a way, in a very small and mild way, of people who at least want to seek other point of views and not the ones that they are fed. And it's not surprising, and perhaps you can tell us what you think about this. Now the censorship is not from the government or the state. It comes from the companies, from the platforms like YouTube and Google and the Twitters that try to, or Facebook, that try to censorship, to put censorship on people. And this is quite it's quite unique that the private business is doing the job of the state.
Oh, absolutely, and I've been saying that for years. I've said it in a couple speeches, actually. I mean, that and it's amazing because the left is supposed to be anti-corporate, but the corporations actually do all the work of the left. And it's because, the globalist mindset, I've written about a lot about this in Becoming a Barbarian. The globalist mindset is a consumer mindset. It's, how to reach the most customers. So, of course, you're going to try to not offend anyone and appeal to everyone possible. And if anyone says something that would offend someone, you shut them down because they're hurting your bottom line, and that's all that corporations do. They're not ideological. They don't care about anything. They're run by shareholders. They have to turn a profit. That's their job. And so they're going to do anything that they possibly can to turn a profit, and that serves the goals of globalism and the left and whatever. So it's kind of ridiculous. That's why all these little protests and everything, they're such a farce. It's like giant corporations are on your side already. That's the fact that you think that you're standing up against corporations. Like, corporations are the ones imposing diversity policies on everyone.
Of course. Now, however, as we also discussed before, all these movements, whether it's from the corporate world or the state or young clueless people, idealistic maybe, but clueless nonetheless, is contributing to bring what you and I write about, which is a collapse of the whole thing. It's not obviously, and for more and more people it's obvious, not sustainable anymore, and the window of the potentiality for it to continue gets smaller and smaller. So your message about building your own tribe, or at least setting up yourself with the values that fit any tribe that will exist at some point, becomes even more relevant. You have good feedback on that on your side.
Oh yeah, I mean, obviously, there are a lot of people who think what I'm doing is escapist, but I really think that if you're gonna, I don't think you can recover tribal things from the past. I don't think that you can bring back the past. You never can. You can't bring back old Europe. You can't bring back traditional values as they were 200 years ago. None of that can ever happen. So we're at a place where the slate is wiped clean. So why don't you just make the world that you want, and set up the life that you want as best you can right now, and don't worry about all these big problems that you actually can't control, and start actually setting an example and putting creating culture rather than just commenting on it and criticizing it, because that people do that all the time, and it really doesn't. That's why your culture is dead, because all you do is criticize. It's like you need creative people, and you need to actually set an example that people can follow and that can inspire people. And so that's what I'm trying to do now. I mean, I don't write as much as I used to, and I'm just out. It's like if I was going to build a religion, what religion would it be? Like, how would and fortunately, I found some like-minded people to hang out with, and who share a lot of my values, and it's really exciting. It's exciting to be creative and to build something from scratch and to work on it. And that's a lot more gratifying to me than to sit around and complain all the time.
So you mentioned at the beginning that you just bought some land.
Yes. So that's what we're doing right now. Is for our tribe that they have out here, I bought some land, and we've been building different structures, and it's kind of a place. It's kind of inspired. We call it Wolfgang, inspired by Ernst Jünger, and his idea of kind of the forest passage and this spiritual place that's an escape from modern society. And in his work, the spiritual place is actually just inside you. But I actually wanted to construct something in real life, and so that's it's kind of my spiritual place right now. I hate it when I don't go because it's like it's a ways away from my house, so I have to drive out there for a while to get there. And like yesterday, I really didn't have time to do that much out there, but I still drove the whole way out there just to hang out there and do a little work on my cabin, and then come home because that's what's important to me, and it kind of keeps me centered.
Excellent. Well, definitely, Ernst Junger. We both appreciate this author, and definitely the German title of the book you just mentioned is Waldvogel. No, the Way of the Forest is translated in French.
Yeah.
It's an excellent book. It's written in 1950 something.
Something like that. Yeah, it was after the war.
Just after the war, and he foresaw as well that he foresaw the sort of dictatorship we would live in, and it's amazing that he saw that after the war, after the real dictatorship.
And also, there's some great quotes in there about needing to check the news. There's a great quote in there about needing to check the news. It's like a sign of neurosis, like that they enforce on you, so that they can know where you're at 24/7. Like you have to be involved in the news all the time.
And that's before the internet.
Yeah, and that was obviously way before the internet or even like a lot of television. I mean, they all had limited television, and now it's like, I mean, people can't go 5 minutes without checking their phones. I mean, I check my phone all the time, but that's my work. I have an Instagram. That's kind of my favorite media platform is Instagram because I'm an artist kind of by nature, and to put out, we have a cool photographer that we're working with, and Peter Best. And to put out some images that inspire people is very exciting to me.
They're very nice. Now, perhaps to finish, for people in France that have read The Way of Man in French, what will they find in A Sky Without Eagle to go further?
To go further from The Way of Man, I think people always ask, well, what with The Way of Man, like what kind of society would you create if you could? And I did, like I said, I wrote an essay in there about called The Brotherhood.
Yes.
And that's kind of been my motto. I should probably go back and read it. I haven't read it in a while. Make sure it's still what I want. But I am that's something that's different. And obviously, I think the idea of the barbarian that I developed in Sky Without Eagles then kind of set the stage for becoming a barbarian and the next book. So it's a good bridge from The Way of Men to becoming a barbarian, which I think they're also publishing in French at some point.
I sure hope so. And tell us about the one you're working on. I know you may say I know I don't want to talk about it, but what's it going to be about?
It's basically a lot of what we've been talking about, really. The thing is, if you believe in strength, and if you want to be, and I don't like arguments that say that, like evolutionary arguments, that we have to be this way. Well, people are all kinds of ways. You don't have to be. I mean, obviously, it's better for us a lot of times. Like men feel better, I think, and that's always the argument I've made is that we're missing something in our lives. Like the way that my dog, if he doesn't go for a walk, he's sad. If we don't get to do certain things, we're not as fulfilled as men.
Yeah.
But I think that if you just choose that you're going to follow a path of strength, and you're going to look at the four tactical virtues that I talked about in The Way of Men as guidelines for how you want to live your life, you're put in a position that we've been talking about is that those values actually aren't appreciated or wanted in modern society. And so that you can easily fall into a trap of resentment, this idea that, like the whole world is upside down and it's not fair and you can get mad at it. And I think that a lot of the protest movements and stuff like that that come from the right are guided by resentment in the sense that they're just mad that things aren't the way they think they should be. But the world never is the way you think it should be. And you just have to kind of do your best within it. And I think the jump that I'm making from there is, to not be mad all the time, to not be angry that the world isn't the way that you want it to be. You need to create. Take the path of creation rather than the path of being just angry all the time. Of
the frustration.
Yeah. So creation is kind of the end goal that I'm kind of putting forward now. It's like, if you don't like the way the world is, create something. It's good to identify problems and to look at the world realistically, but you need to do something eventually with your life, aside from like complain about things that you can't control.
I agree. And it's much more efficient than going to protestation in the streets.
Yeah. You probably won't get maced either. I mean, you might, but
you might, but not proactively.
Yeah, and that's the thing with these protests and all that. I don't think they actually accomplish anything. I feel like they're play actors acting out a role for the government that's going to do what it wants anyway.
Yeah, for sure.
So I mean, I think it's very cathartic what they're doing.
People who want power and people who want to be in charge, they should wait till the whole system falls down and then take charge of the ruins.
Yeah,
but
and taking not the people at the protests who are capable of doing that.
No, but today
I know guys who are, and they're just waiting.
Yeah, exactly.
So
exactly. And well, anyway, I look forward to reading your book in French, and certainly I look forward to your new one when it's coming out. And if you ever drop by in Europe next time, I know that your book is doing well in Germany as well. Let us know, and we'll organize something in France while France still exists.
Well, hopefully it still exists. I would like to see it. I haven't been to France yet.
We must organize that.
All right.
Have a great day. Take care.
Thank you very much.